So since 177, the very first video that we're playing, is on mute, tell the court what we're looking at here.
I'm arriving on scene initially. I'm about to meet with Sergeant Tim Johnson, Madison Park County Police Department.
That individual we see in the frame at 1337, who's that?
That is Sergeant Tim Johnson. I can't remember the name of the other officer in the background, and that is Diego in the red sweatshirt.
And what apartment number is Diego standing out front of?
D126.
Does Sergeant Johnson show you an image at some point in this encounter with him?
Yes, right now. He's showing me a still frame image from video that they had recovered that I didn't have at that time.
And that still frame image, do we see it in your screen at 1337?
Yes, ma'am, on the phone.
And was that an image taken from a dumpster nearby?
Yes.
So he shows you that image, and then what do you do?
This is news to me. I was coming on shift roughly maybe an hour before this. So I relayed that to my superiors who were about to pull up, coincidentally, and then explained to them that, hey, they've got footage. At that time, I was not aware that they had already been aware of that footage.
The footage that was shown to you by Sergeant Johnson, what, if anything, was significant about it to you, and then what you were observing for yourself on Diego Ibarra?
At first, videoing it or reviewing the video, the still frame photo, Sergeant Johnson informs me that the image shows a male holding a hat or having a black Adidas hat, and then he informs me that I couldn't necessarily see from that distance until I get closer to Diego, but that Diego is wearing an identical hat, a black Adidas flat-bill hat.
Did you make any observations about the hat that Diego was wearing?
Once I got closer, yes. I noticed on the back what I believe to be dirt on the brim.
And was that significant to you?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was on scene when we located Laken the day prior. She did have a lot of dirt, mulch, and things like that on her body. And I felt that if an individual was wearing that hat and was touching Laken in that manner, dirt could have been transferred to the hat by moving the hat.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit for the record. At some point, do you begin talking to Diego Ibarra through your interpreter?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And how would you describe Diego Ibarra's demeanor with you and with you?
I mean, he's compliant. He's not posing any issues. Obviously, there's a block there through communication. But based off his physical mannerisms, I'm not really getting any deceptive behavior per se. I was aware at this point he did provide a fake green card, so he was detained for that.
Right.
He seemed to understand that we were detaining him for an investigative purpose. There appeared to be good rapport between him and officers, especially with Officer Bridges there, who you see.
If you could, do you have the pointer in front of you?
I'm not sure if I do.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Point out to the court at 1342 in your muted video that we're playing. Where's Officer Bridges?
He's right here in an identical uniform that I'm wearing.
All right. And the one closest to Diego in this frame?
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead. So you talk to him at some point. At some point, do you decide to obtain a search warrant for the apartment and to freeze the apartment?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, based on the fact that he was wearing that hat, the time frame that Tim Johnson encountered him was within 24 hours of the murder. He was walking back towards the general direction of campus, which was concerning as well. He somewhat matched the description of the male seen in that photo, discarding of what I later learned was evidence found in that dumpster.
And specific what evidence?
A sweater or a pullover of some sort with blood on it.
Okay.
And hair.
Okay. And did you ever see that evidence, or you were just informed of it?
No, it was picked up throughout the middle of the night. I was there all day the day before. They sent me home to get a sleep cycle, and I was the supervisor this day.
All right.
So I never saw the evidence throughout the night.
All right, go ahead.
And
What
then
about the proximity from the dumpster to Laken Riley's body?
the dumpster to Laken Riley's body, probably rough estimate 500 yards.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So at some point, when you're with Diego Ibarra and you decide to get the search warrant, first of all, how do you communicate that to get the search warrant?
I go and talk to my superiors and I ask them, because they're maybe 20, 30 yards away in the parking lot at another vehicle discussing. I think they were talking to some GBI agents and other agency partners. And I asked for clarification of, at this point I gained knowledge there were other individuals inside the apartment. I wanted to start getting resources in and confirming that yes, we are going to go ahead and surround it. A warrant's going to be sought, and I need other translators here because from what I'm gathering, no one else speaks English inside the apartment.
And how many other individuals did you believe to be inside the apartment?
At this time, 3.
And could you see them from where you're standing?
No, not without being intrusive of sticking my face up to that window, which we didn't do. One, for an officer safety standpoint, but also, I didn't have a warrant at that point yet.
Do you see the window? You said the window. Can you point the window out? Is
Yes.
that, and that's again 1342. Is that the window to D126?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to roll a little more. At some point, do you start asking Diego questions about whether he has any injuries?
Eventually, yes, I did.
And do you take pictures of him, and do you see parts of his body?
Correct. Yes, I did.
Going to- play the video first, and then show you some photos. First of all, did you? You mentioned to us that there was a fake ID, so you knew he had given a fake ID. Tell us a little bit of that process.
I didn't obtain it myself. It was provided to Sergeant Johnson when he located him and was identifying him. Sergeant Johnson provided it to me and stated, if you look at it, there's 2 different dates of birth listed. There was one vertically on the side and then one listed with the rest of his identification information.
So did you agree with Sergeant Johnson's assessment that this was not a valid form of government identification?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to go to, I'm still muted. About 1358 on State's Exhibit 177. What are we looking at here now at 1358?
I believe at this point my captain, Seth Robinson, was interested in seeing his hands.
And
asked him-
does he show you his hands?
Yes. So Captain Robinson, I believe, asked Officer Bridges to relay to him to please, show us your hands, and he complied. And put his hands out.
And did you see his hands?
I did.
Did you see any injuries to his hands?
No.
At 1359, what are we seeing Diego Ibarra do?
He was asked about, I believe they were asking this, if he could take his jacket off, and they were looking at tattoos as well as trying to make observations of any other potential injuries.
And go ahead.
And he takes his jacket off and becomes, I don't know exactly what he says. He starts kind of ranting a little bit and pulls his shirt up and shows us his stomach and his side tattoo.
And do you see any injuries on his stomach?
From my vantage point, no, I did not.
And if you had seen any injuries, would you have documented them?
Yes.
Okay. So may we toggle over, Your Honor? States 178, what are we looking at there?
That is a picture of Diego.
And do we see the hat he's wearing in this image?
Yes.
Is that the black Adidas hat that you've already described?
Yes, ma'am.
States 179. Well, who is that?
That's Diego.
Okay, and on his face, does he have any tattoos?
He does. He has a teardrop tattoo on his right eye, kind of off to the side there. It's a little hard to see if you zoomed in, but we identified as potential gang affiliation tattoo. Can
you point to that on
Yes.
the right side for 179? So what that image is, or that mark on his face that states 179, was that an injury?
No, it's a tattoo.
All right, thank you. States 180.
Again, it's Diego.
And do you see a tattoo on his neck?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, please point to that. 182.
Diego again.
Okay, does he have tattoos on the back of his neck?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please point to those? 183.
It's a close-up of the picture we just looked at.
And in 183, can you actually see the rest of the hat?
You can, yeah.
Okay. 184.
Rib cage tattoo. I'm not sure what the design was.
So tattoos, but did you observe any injuries?
No.
At some point while you are there, Sergeant, and approximately how long are you at this apartment complex that day?
All day, from 8:32 in the morning, and I don't think I was released till probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
All right, I'm gonna go back to a different section of your video. And again, it's played on mute. We are now at 14:34 in the top count for the record. So that would be 9:38 a.m. Am I right about that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At 9:38 a.m., we see an individual in a yellow shirt. Can you please point to that person first of all? And who is that person?
That is a brother Argenis, either Argenis or Argenis Ibarra.
And how did this person appear in this video? What happened?
He, while speaking with Diego and waiting for resources and other things, he walked out with a trash bag, like a 5-gallon plastic white trash bag that you would buy at Kroger.
Was he detained as well?
Yes.
And did you photograph him that day?
We did.
And I don't need to toggle over, but states 185, who is that?
That's Argenis.
At some point, did you obtain consent to enter the apartment from Argenis?
Yes.
And did you in fact enter the apartment?
I did.
What was your purpose of entering the apartment?
Well, he informed us that something was on the stove and that he was very adamant about going in to turn the stove off, I believe because of a fire hazard. So that was what we asked for consent to do.
And prior to going in, did you look to see if there are residents inside?
I did what we call a threshold evaluation, so I kind of peeked around from an angle because the door was already open. When Argenis left, he left the door open. So I could kind of see what the environment inside looked like. And when I didn't see any obvious threats, that's when I got closer to the doorway.
In States 177, we're now playing the second video for the record, and we're at 1442. Could you show the court where the open door is in the frame? All right. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the time where you made entry. And at this point, I am going to play, so we're at 14:55 for the record, and I am going to play this video with volume because there's no statements of individuals. But the officers, and there is no confrontation issue here. But now our video is not working. Our audio is not working. There we go.
And that's back by the bedroom. I don't know if that's an exigency for me to go in there for a suit. Just a normal dude. I gotta go into the that's true. Yeah, I'll do it. There's a guy right here. There's a guy right here. Yeah, but alright. Hola. 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 Policia. Manos, hey. Policia, manos.
He said he left them on stove, so I'm going to try and get it off.
Hey, I need you to translate one at a time. Come here. Come to me. Come here. For you. Tell him I need to see his hands. I need to see his hands. Tell him to slowly get out. Ask him to get anybody else. That's a match, man. See it slowly. Pull me in. There's nobody else in here?
No. He said no.
Dude, turn this bitch off.
Okay, I'm going to pause it at 14:58 for the record. Were there people inside the apartment?
Yes.
How many?
2.
What were they doing?
Laying in bed.
Could you see their hands or their bodies?
No.
You had Bridges translate for you at some point, and when you went in, we could see a light. Were you holding a flashlight in your hand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Were there, in fact, beans on the stove?
There were in
Okay.
a crock pot, the ceramic part of a crock pot.
All right. And you turned those off?
I tried.
The individual, first of all, the 2 individuals was one male and one was female.
Correct.
Okay. The female, What was her name?
Her name was Rosabelli, and I can't remember her last name at the moment.
That other male that was in the apartment, what is his name?
Jose Ibarra.
And do you see that person that you pulled out of the apartment at 14:58 in this screen?
Yes, you do.
And what color clothing is he wearing?
Red shirt, black shorts, and like black and red sandals.
And the person that you pulled out of the apartment on 23rd day of February 2024, do you see him in the courtroom today?
I do.
Please point to him and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing for the record.
He's wearing a striped button-down shirt.
May the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. Did you, at some point, have the opportunity to observe Jose Ibarra, the defendant, on scene?
Yes.
How close were you at times to Jose Ibarra?
Your normal conversation distance, maybe a foot and a half.
Did you observe any injuries to Jose Ibarra?
I did.
What injuries did you observe?
While speaking to him, I noticed on his right arm, his bicep, there was a scratch, which I identified as a potential defensive wound. On his left arm, he had a forearm scratch that was very similar, which in my mind looked like fingernail scratches to me. While he was sitting there speaking to us, I also noticed on his left wrist, just below the palm, he had a puncture, maybe a half an inch wide, that through my experiences of playing sports in high school and receiving the same injury from fingernails in football, I could see like wet flesh, like almost like it was fresh. It wasn't very old, possibly still irritated. And as he moved his wrists, when I was looking at them closely, I could actually see the liquid, or I guess body fluids that would be in that cut, kind of reflecting with light.
Did you observe, I'm going to publish a few of the photos. Court, would you please toggle over it, Your Honor? States 186. Who is that?
That's Jose Ibarra.
And how would you describe his beard and mustache situation?
It's thicker than Diego's, if I remember correctly. Not well maintained. He had sort of a neck beard. Wasn't very long, but it was definitely an established beard. I wouldn't consider it like a 5 o'clock shadow.
Did Jose Ibarra have any tattoos on his neck?
No.
As far as height and weight differentials, you were with both Jose Ibarra and Diego Ibarra?
Correct.
How would you describe their height and weight differential?
Jose at the time weighed more through my observations and was shorter.
And when you say at the time, does he look thinner in court today?
He does.
Okay. Is that the way he looked on February 23rd as far as weight? When I say he, I mean Jose.
No.
States 188, what's that?
That is the back of Jose's head.
187?
That is a close-up picture of Jose's mouth and lips. We were concerned. It looked like his lips were red and irritated.
189?
A side profile picture. That's the right arm with a scratch.
191?
That would be the left lower wrist, forearm area with a scratch, as well as the palm.
192?
That is his left palm that had some bruising on the thumb palm area, and if you kind of look below that area, you'll see an irritated red area, which is where I saw that fingernail puncture mark.
Okay, the one that was pussing or oozing? You said?
Yeah, it was.
Could you please point to that in 192? At the middle of the screen, thank you.
Right.
193?
That's another picture of his right arm with a tattoo, but also you can see the fingernail scratch.
And 194?
That is a scratch on his forearm.
at some point, did you question Jose Ibarra about his injuries?
I used a translator. Yes, we did.